Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my review of Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. Okay, so let's lead heavy, let's lead fast. This game, for many people, is going to be their game of the year, without a doubt. And for me, it's definitely in contention for top spot, for sure. I've loved every second of it, I've clocked the campaign. I did it in about 12 hours, but honestly, it's probably more like 10 or 11. Had a few issues, but we can get to that. But even just from a single player, game for gamers perspective, this is going to be game of the year for a lot of people. For Warhammer 40,000 fans, 40k fans, this is probably game of lifetime for a lot. Like, if you think this game might be overhyped dangerously, I'm here to tell you, brother, believe the hype. It's actually better than you could possibly believe. I went into this fairly blind, and actually, it's probably worth front loading as well. Go in as blind as you can. If what I'm telling you is all you needed to hear, and you're fortunate enough to only watch my video first, be really careful of what you watch out there. I don't even want to tell people that there are things that can be spoiled because that even puts them in an awareness state, right? I didn't know what this game was other than it looks pretty awesome, I'm going to play it. And I just go media blackout personally, I just don't watch videos. And this game went from strength to strength to strength. I promise you I won't spoil anything. And it just consistently blew my socks off with what you could probably call fan service. But I know that kind of means something different these days. I suppose my point is, if you have any sort of vested interest in 40k, drop everything, buy this, play that campaign. You're going to have the time of a lifetime. But yes, be very, very careful. I'm going to actually kind of be quite cagey with the footage that I use. Again, I've clocked the campaign and I loved every second of it. And that's all I can really say, all I'm willing to say. And I don't even want to say that much. Be very careful what you click on. There's another layer to it as well. Everyone is sort of planting their flags. You know, there's a lot of sort of political, ideological warfare going on in the gaming scene. Everyone's got an opinion, and you know, there are studios crashing and burning because they picked the wrong side of the argument. This game is on your side. This is a gamer's game. This made me feel, it's a weird kind of stretch, but it made me feel like when I played the Gears of War games back in the day. This game has the potential to be this generation's, I don't know what you'd want to call it, of consoles or new gamers or whatever, but it actually feels like what it felt like to be gaming, playing Gears of War, desperately wanting to play it with the boys and share those experiences, get attached to all the machismo, battlefield, oorah nonsense. So that's what this really makes me think of and made me feel. Anyway, look, I know I've spent a bit of time sort of pitching and dancing around it. We'll go into it a little bit more. Again, I won't spoil it, but in the paraphrased words of one of the characters towards the twilight of the game, this game has restored my faith in brotherhood. This is a game for the boys, to be shared with the boys. And if I have one slight regret, I suppose, it's that I powered through it on my own. I've managed to line up two of my boys from yesteryear that are big Warhammer nuts as well, and we're going to be going through the campaign, and they keep asking me to tell them about the game, and I won't because I want to experience them having their fucking hats blown off when they see what happens in this game. So get giddy, get excited, get together the splash money and play this frigging game. I will say one other interesting thing. So this is Saber Interactive, an interesting studio all their own under Focus Entertainment. Now look, I've followed both these studios for a long time. I'm a big fan. Firmly what you would call AA spaces, right? They only get so much foot traffic or attention. I feel like this could be the rallying call. A lot of people are calling for at least transformative change in the AAA space, or, you know, to an extreme point, the collapse of it. This game is asking AAA price, but absolutely its pedigree is from AA studios under that format, I guess. This is worth the AAA price. This is better than most AAA games this year. And all of this is through the lens of playing the campaign and just remembering back to playing Gears of War campaign and all that sort of stuff. The multiplayer will add a lot of replayability to this. However, like I said, it's a bit beyond my purview. I can't really talk about that, not for any other reason other than it's just difficult to line sort of that gig up in pre-release. But we will talk about the idea of it if you're not across it shortly. One other thing that I found kind of fascinating about the Focus Saber relationship, because Saber is kind of their own AA publisher in their own right now. They've been scooping up studios. They kind of own what is it, 3D Realms is one of them, New World Interactive, and all those guys are, making boomer shooter throwback, things for gamers. Like, you can feel their attitude in their behavior. And then quite publicly, Saber actually separated from Embracer Group earlier this year. So all these ticks in the boxes for the new wave being paved of games for gamers. But the last time they did a big collaboration with a publisher above them in focus was when they did the World War Z game. Now, a lot of people might have missed that, but one big takeaway, and it didn't click to me until I was playing it, because you're versing Tyranids in this game, and there'll be waves of them coming up the battlements, and they're triangles stacking on top of each other, much like the World War Z movie, which we saw in the World War Z game by this studio. So they've taken essentially that technology and brought that across, and it's really cool. And then you sort of start to realize, of course, this was a match made in heaven, a dream come true. They've already done sort of wave-based stuff in World War Z, and what I would argue was the weakest part of the World War Z game was the melee component. Didn't quite work that well. My God, they've nailed it here. So much so that it stands apart from Space Marine 1, and it kind of feels like a totally different loop. And to use the Gears of War example, if you can even remember back to it, the snap cover-based shooting, the actual tactical interplay of moving around your targets using cover was revolutionary at the time. This was something that you'd never seen before, sticky cover and all that. And so this has the same ingredients, albeit a different gimmick, let's say, core loop. It's not cover based, but it is melee pistolier interplay mixed in with mid to longer range shooting. Shooting is definitely sort of secondary, or at least 50-50 hybridized with the melee. And if you are a 40k fan of some sort, you probably share this sentiment with me that the most tragic thing that hasn't come across from the tabletop correctly in any take was, that cut image of a Space Marine sergeant standing there with a bolt pistol in one hand and a chainsword in the other. And they've never really got it right, but they've got it right here. And that on its own is enough to go, mechanically, it's the best 40k game there's ever been. And so what it does is it plays like more of a character action game, I guess, but it actually takes a lot of inspiration kind of from the counter interplay that you would see in something like an Arkham game, like Batman Combat. Just surface level similarities, but the enemies will telegraph what you can and can't parry with, blue or orange in this case. And if you hit the parry window in time, you'll go into a cool little animation. There are other sort of interplays as well, the way that you sort of right click to melee, which again was Space Marine 1 kind of, and you can kind of guard break as well, but between counters, guard breaks, and perfectly timed dodges against telegraphs, you'll get like a little quick reaction lock-on critical pistol shot. And so you'll find a lot of the engagements go from hip-fire gunplay, because you can go ADS or zoom over shoulder, Gears of War-esque. But generally speaking, as you close on them and they close on you, you're putting the mag into the wave, and then mag's dry, the enemy's here, it's chainsword o'clock. And you're swinging, you're trying to alternate between chaining right clicks on our own into held attacks, sort of heavy attacks, which will turn into, sort of stuns. Mix that in with the counter and dodge interplay, and then these flick shot pistol lock-on shots in between the sword sweeps. I've never played anything like this in the Warhammer universe, and yet it fits like a glove. This is such a great tribute to Space Marine combat. And here's the other side of it as well, because I'm actually a Xeno player, right? Tyranids are actually kind of my main. I've run tournament lists. It's been a while now. So if you find the Tyranids interesting, I can tell you as a huge Tyranid fan, they are done so much justice in here. And I don't really want to tell you more than that other than play it. It's one of those things. My video honestly exists to tell you that this game is rad and you should play it. And I feel I don't want to overstep by over-pitching and telling you what is in here. What was absolutely delightful was the idea that, because it's three-player co-op, but you can play with the bots and that's just fine. You've got Gadriel and Chiron, who are both distinct personalities, bouncing off Titus, the main character, who is the carryover character from the first game, and he's voiced by what's his name again? The dude that played Rollo in Vikings. And look, he does a standout job, but it did hurt my heart a little bit that it wasn't Mark Strong from the first game. But by the end of it, that was in the rearview mirror. So at first, it was a little jarring. It was a little bitter of me. But this dude earned his stripes. Full fair play to all the actors and the writing as well. Because my God, the camaraderie between these three, when I say things like the throwback to the Gears of War era, and I point out, hey, when was the last game that actually made you, let's be honest, as a guy, give a shit about the boys bonding together on the battlefield, since Gears of War, you might struggle a bit, right? Well, this is it. This is the one. And arguably, it's done better because it's whoever the writing staff is, they know exactly who the audience is. This really makes me think of how all these 40k fans are getting so excited and hyped about the Henry Cavill project, a project by a fan for fans. I'm telling you, this game is that dream that you want manifest. And these three blokes are great and balance each other out. Chiron's sort of the good soldier following the way, but as it goes along, his backstory kind of comes into it and he gets his arc. He gets a really good character arc as a B character, right? And Gadriel as well, arguably even better. And this is the dude that's sort of loyal to the brothers before his new lieutenant. And there's friction. There's some really big masculine energy, but there's some headbutting. And I'm telling you, this is the arc that they go through. And the conclusion, oh my God, it's all just so satisfying. And more than anything, this just rattles my cage about, there've been some good games this year. There've been some great games, but this thing stands apart. And I really hope that this sets a new standard that everyone else tries to step up to. Anyway, look, I'm talking a lot in platitudes just about how wowed I am by this game. I've given you an idea of the sort of core gimmick mechanic. There are multiplayer modes. You can play the campaign multiplayer from what I understand. But like I said, I had server issues because I'm Australian. They like to go into maintenance. So I couldn't really play multiplayer. And then, honestly, my mates had scheduling conflicts as well. So just lining up a crew became kind of impossible in the tiny window that I had. I will point out though, if you play offline, it was giving me all these warnings saying your progress is going to reset in the multiplayer extra modes. So I guess be aware of that, but it's probably worth mentioning though. So apart from the campaign itself, there's two modes. One, I don't give a shit about. It's PvP, right? It's like, 5v5. And to me, as much as I'm throwing back to like the noughties, the early noughties or, 2010s of games, in a way, they've gone and tacked on a multiplayer mode that I don't know if anyone's really interested in. You remember Dead Space 2 multiplayer? I do. No one else does because it was crap. And I expect that this will be the same thing. I could be wrong, right? But I don't think the core loop, as awesome as it is, and as much as it sort of represents Space Marine versus Tyranid combat in a PvE kind of way, I don't think it'll stand up in, versus other people. I could be absolutely wrong, but that's one of the modes. But the other thing, which may turn out to be the shining star centerpiece of this entire thing, and I really wish I'd had the chance to beat the embargo and play it, and maybe I'll do a follow-up video because my boys are pumped, right? We're going to spend all weekend playing it and beyond, I think. But it reminds me of like the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer mode, which was brilliant. I'll hear no slander against it. So through the course of this campaign, I won't give it away, there are B teams that are sort of wound in as a spin-off narrative. So your 3-man squad will be doing something and you'll be like, well, I need another 3-man squad to do this other thing in concert. So it's sort of a other angle of the battlefield through the eyes of the B team. And so that's what this mode is, that you play as that B team. So it's a very clever idea and it will have its own kind of narrative contained within. But you can make your custom Space Marine within the constraints of the classes that they have and the loadouts and weapons. So you could be like a jump trooper with a bloody power fist, and the loadouts are a little bit more limited. You're less main character, and that is a good thing, I would suspect. Again, a lot of this is getting into speculative territory, but you could kind of rock a primary, heavy weapon and sword and gun, and you could sort of hybridize your way through the power trip that was the main campaign a bit. Whereas I feel like in that mode, especially with turning up the difficulty and really stressing the boys out and challenging yourself, it feels like, it'll be closer to sort of like Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, playing within the constraints of your sort of pseudo RPG character. And then beyond that, you can unlock all these different chapter regalia, and I'm actually pumped about. I don't give a shit about cosmetics ever, but I can't wait to, unlock a whole bunch of Imperial fists and, paint my dudes up and then have me boys on me left and right. One of them, I think, is into bloody Black Templars or something like that, and the other one will just do whatever looks stupid, so he'll probably go something like a Salamander. But all of that aside, and I'm pretty certain, but I would also caution to maybe double check if you're only getting into it for you want 100 hours of multiplayer replayability. But I would say 10, 11, 12 hour main campaign made for you by other gamers, super high production, the best videos I've seen all year, so much stuff that I just am exploding to tell you about, but I can't. That is worth the price. That is worth the AAA price. And people talk about vote with your wallet in the don't use your wallet. I say vote with your wallet here. Buy this game. Show the industry this is what you want. Because I don't know about you, I'm willing to pay AA studios AAA price if they do this. If they give us what we want at this quality standard and just fucking subvert the entire AAA studios altogether. Anyway, it's a longer video than I thought it would be. It's also, as a closing thought, probably my last review that I'm going to be doing for quite a while. I mentioned stuff like issues in pre-release, trying to get the boys together, but even the maintenance issues, I did lose a save progress component. I lost probably an hour or so of my progress, and I think it was because it was fucking around with the servers. I'm not sure what happened, so I had to replay essentially the final act all over, which I didn't mind, I guess. And, to have a real moment for anyone that made it this far, I don't want to be a reviewer, not in the case of some dude that just powers through a game to try and play an algorithm and get played by studios at the same fucking time. I just feel used, and I feel like I'm not enjoying games on my pace. As soon as you're playing a game to completion under sufferance, under timetable, I feel like you sort of forfeit your credentials. At least that's how it feels to me. If I only want to play a game for a couple of hours and call it quits, or play something else because that's better, then that's what I should do, and that's what I'm going to do. You can couple this in as well. I've got a game I'm not going to talk about under embargo, but my save is going to get wiped when it goes launch, when it goes 1.0. And I guess that's just the terms. Couple that with Star Wars Outlaws, a lot of people have reported having their files wiped when the new version came out as well. And I guess my point is, it's the straw that broke the camel's already overburdened back. I just don't like playing that game. What I do love doing is doing my little 2-hour overviews. I knew this game was a fucking banger 15 minutes in, 5 minutes in. I didn't need to play it for 12 hours to give you this video. And as much as I've enjoyed playing and all that, I probably could have spent that time better. I could have played this game over a longer period of time, and I could have covered any one of these other wonderful releases that are sitting in my pile and I'm going to continue to cover. So again, this is more for people that have been with the channel for a while. We're just going to go back to overviews, and we're just going to stick with that because that's what I like. It's my format. It's fairly unique, informative, and it shouts out a lot of cool games that probably don't get a platform. I'm not the biggest platform, but I'm the biggest some of these guys get. And that's what I like using it for. Anyway, thank you for hearing me out at the end. Too long didn't read. Get this fucking game. It's one of the best games you're going to play all year, and get it before it gets spoilt for you, before your entire feed of socials is just flooded with cutscenes and fan service that you should have experienced blind. Anyway, team, much as over there for the time being. I'll catch you guys on the next one.